Hello everyone, it is Sarah or Lovely Day here with a speed draw video. Now this picture is actually for one of my patrons. I sketched this on a stream and then they really liked it, which I was really happy about, so much so that they upped their pledge and wanted me to colour it, so that's exactly what I'm doing here. The character's name is Alice and she belongs to jessdorksalot over on Instagram, and yeah, it was a pleasure to paint her. Now initially I always like to start with a solid colour in the background. I often add some gradients in there just so I can get an idea of where I want this image to go. So if I want it to be a light image, I will start with a light background. If I want it to be a lot darker, I will start with a darker colour, and that's what I've done here. Now I knew I wanted some interesting ambient lights, hence why I added that purple. Doing these base colours is always the first step, and it's always tedious and boring, and I always complain about it, but there is no way around it. Full bucket just doesn't do the same job, so unfortunately I just have to stick with it. And thankfully while I was doing these base colours, I had company over on my stream, which was really cool. It makes such a difference having people there to talk to while I'm working. I mean, even if it slows my progress down a little bit, it's worth it overall because I find I can draw for longer without getting tired or sick of it. And I have a mic on, so it's not like I'm stopping to type. It's just sometimes multitasking can be interesting. I'm going through now, just adding shadow, kind of getting an idea of where I want the highlights to be. That was my main challenge for this piece, to have really strong highlights and really dark shadows. It was a challenge, but I definitely enjoyed it, and I think it turned out alright. I definitely learned a lot. If you're curious to see how I did the sketch for this, I actually did that on a stream and I've uploaded the footage from that, sped up of course, to my channel. Alright, so here I get real serious and I'm just adding a lot more shadows. It needs to be darker. It's really hard to know sometimes when to stop, but that's something you just kind of have to figure out as you go. It's super easy to just take it too far, but yeah, I've got a ways to go yet, and I knew that much. Initially I did want to show some of the purple that Alice has as underlights in her hair. You can kind of see a bit of them still peeking through here, but as I made it all darker, they kind of get hidden. Alright, my favorite thing to do at the moment, and that is selecting different areas and using my gradients to add some shadows. It's a super easy way of doing it. I can't believe I never used to do this. It looks a bit weird and chunky initially. Sometimes I quite like the lines it makes, but often more often than not, I'll go back in and smooth them out with my brush. It's just an easy way to get a nice shadow without having to, paint over it. Because adding shadows with a brush is fine. It works. It has its own effect, and having a mixture of different techniques in my pieces, I think makes them look better. I might be wrong, but I like it and it's easy, so I'm going to keep doing it. Now, it was around about this time where I realized that in focusing so much on the shadows and the highlights, just using my blacks and greys and whites, I was losing a lot of the life in this picture. It was just getting darker, and although I wanted that to an extent, it kind of was just losing its life. I can't think of any other way to say it. So I went in with my handy gradient tool after adjusting some levels and color balances and just added some pops of color. I really liked the way this made her skin tone look more real. It added a lot more depth to it. All of a sudden, she wasn't just dead. She had some life in there. There was blood flowing in her skin, It just made a world of difference. Here I'm just smoothing things out as you do, adding more shadows in certain places, building up the highlights. I decided to have more of a blue ambient light on the right and then more of a pink or purple on the left. I also decided that her cheek needed to have some more shading, and initially I was using a gradient for this, but I didn't like the way that looked, so I went in and did it with my brush instead. When you get to this point, it's just a case of smoothing things out and refining those lines. I don't refine everything because I do like the kind of ruggedness of some of my brush strokes showing through, but then in other places they really do need to be that much smoother. I keep on zooming out a lot just to allow myself to take the whole picture in and check that my contrast is good with the darker spots and the lighter spots, that it looks convincing. again, fiddling with those levels. Now here I just decide that I need to make that background a bit darker, just since it was a bit too bright for what I wanted. And here's the finished picture. I was really happy with it in the end, and I hope you like it too. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in another video sometime soon.